I'm gonna piss people off with this answer. You probably won't be the next Joe Rogan. You probably won't be the next Brene Brown. I'd love to be.
What if your podcast could do more than just share my message? What if it could open doors, build relationships, and create real business opportunities?
Ben Albert did exactly that with Growth Getters Only, a mastermind designed for growth-oriented entrepreneurs and business professionals with many successful mentors.
Ben is not just a podcast host for the Real Business Connections Network. He's also a connector. He leverages his podcast, Real Business Connections, to build strategic connections that led to many opportunities.
In this episode, he will reveal how to use podcasting as a powerful networking tool.
Simply put, create and network. Content and networking. Collaborate and network.
The key strategy is to turn conversations into business opportunities.
And I know in the back of my head, if I do a crazy good job, maybe they'll consider hiring me. When I'm networking with someone, I'm thinking, who can I introduce them to? How can I solve a problem?
And the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make with their podcasts.
If I did only solo episodes in my car with the AC running, talking about some fringe topic, no one's going to listen. The biggest mistake is...
Ben, you learned this very unique framework of plus, minus, equal. Can you tell us more about it and how can it help in networking aspects?
It's very simple. If it's not simple, I can't do it, Plus, those are your mentors. Those are the people maybe a coach that you're paying money to ultimately work with. That's your pluses. Your minuses are your mentees. They're your audience. There may be someone who's paying you. They might be a client. They could be an audience member on your YouTube channel. And equals is your peer. They're movers and shakers that maybe no one's spending money on each other, but you're referring people to one another. Maybe they're a videographer and you're a graphic designer. Maybe they do audio and you do voiceovers. Maybe you're in the exact same industry and do similar things. We all have podcasts. But we can learn from each other from having conversations. So when I'm looking to build any strategy, I'm asking myself, who's my mentors? And your mentors and ultimately the people you're learning from, if you build a relationship with them, they actually build your reputation for everyone else. So who are my mentors? Who are my peers, my equals? And who are the minuses? And they're not below me. They're just people that I'm mentoring. They're my audience. And I build all my strategies around those three kinds of people.
How can mentors give you part of the reputation?
Yeah, so we'll use a podcast as an example because we're diving right in. So am I some huge name? I don't know. I think I'm pretty a small brand so far, but anyone who knows Ben, I have a pretty decent brand and sees that I've been on your show. And one thing I love is I love to give endorsements and I love to ask for endorsements. So when we click pause today, maybe I leave you a 15-second video testimonial and you can leverage what I've built in my brand endorsing you, that anyone who knows Ben's wow, these two are actually pretty badass, huh? So it's as you have a podcast and you create content, you bring people on, you get endorsements, you get goodwill, you build your network. Those people, their goodwill, you get to be the recipient of it. Other way around, they're the recipient of your audience. They're the recipient of your editing. They're the recipient of your prep. So if we can find relationships where everybody wins and we can share audiences and share endorsements and share the love, everybody's better for it. So I hope that answers your question, but
totally clear now.
A lot of my mentors I haven't spent money with, but we're friends now, so they know they're willing to put in a good word for me.
Yeah, I understand. We call it usually borrowing the authority or of some people. Always use big examples. So one of our podcast guest goals is Daniel Priestley, an entrepreneur. So I always say, imagine if Daniel Priestley would be here. He's bringing in his audience and we are borrowing his authority because now people see us with Daniel Priestley, with Ben Albert. So now makes sense.
So Ben, you build a very strong networking through your podcast, right? How can entrepreneurs that have a podcast build such a strong relationships like you did with your Mastermind Growth Getters Only?
Yeah, I mean, one conversation at a time. I'm a firm believer that I want to leave someone better than when they first met me. Not perfect, can't always pull it off, but I show up as my best self. I'm always thinking, how can I help them? What's in it for them? How can I serve and support them? When I bring a guest on my show, now I do marketing for thought leaders. I don't pitch my guests. When I bring a guest on my show, I'm not thinking, oh, what a great ideal client. I think, what a brilliant person. How can I make them look as good as possible? How can I show up as my best self for them? And I know in the back of my head, if I do a crazy good job, maybe they'll consider hiring me. When I'm networking with someone, I'm thinking, who can I introduce them to? How can I solve a problem? How can I be a better listener? And you mentioned Grow Getters Only. I technically started it, but I only do like 20% of the talking. And the reason I do 20% of the talking is I'll call on people, or I'll set up a prompt, or I'll do some announcements. But it's all about the community. It's all about the collective. It's all about the hive mind. Because if we all show up looking to help one another, it's almost even confusing sometimes because everyone wants to help each other, and it's just like a help fest, which is fantastic. Everybody's better for it. So I always show up, how can I over deliver? And if you surround yourself with other people with a similar mentality, everyone's better for it.
Yeah, it's a very genuine approach, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's there. Love AI, nothing against automation. Like I am not going to talk any smack, but nothing can replace showing up genuine, listening, caring, holding your word, having a personality. No one can ever replace that. So let's use the tools to deliver better products, but you want to show up as your best self every single day, in my opinion. Works for me, at least.
Yeah, we actually believe also that we know AI is going to come, and there is going to be a huge video AI boom. Like, I don't know, if you haven't seen the VO2 from Google yet, it's mind-blowing. But what we believe is that podcasting and vlogging are going to be the next huge content formats because, well, let's be honest, since 2020, that very eventful year, humans looking more and more for connection, and especially people start getting a little bit sick of AI. So what's going to win is authenticity in the next few years. So this is like something where podcasting and vlogging are going to get a huge, huge boom. Like, maybe not this year, but at least 2026. I'm 100% sure about that.
Well, it does. I'm 1,000,000% sure you're completely correct. And it poses some problems because now we can have an artificial version of ourselves on video. And right now the body language is kind of stiff and incorrect, and the speaking pattern isn't perfect. It's getting better. Yeah. But my concern with people delivering, for example, an artificial version of themselves is the moment we bump into each other at a conference, or the moment we grab coffee or jump on a phone call.
If you even exist.
You and your AI need to be exactly the same, or else you're kind of creating low-level fraud because you're presenting yourself one way when you're another way. And everybody talks about personal branding and creating a brand that does X, Y, and Z. At the core, your brand should be in your DNA. You shouldn't create a fake version of yourself when you're not that person. So I think there's going to be a lot of scams. I think there's going to be a lot of fraud. I think there's going to be a lot of inauthenticity. Doesn't mean the tools aren't good, but
no, they are good.
If you don't use them properly, you're going to look like a scammy marketer. That it's going to be the new level of, people say used car salesman. I know a lot of great used car salesmen, but it's going to be that new, almost like a vulgar to be a marketer, like those scammy AI marketers just want your money. Like, that's going to happen, and I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, I think also if like there's going to be fake podcasters, so people who jump in before are not going to have the problems, and afterwards, like, okay, who has been there before all these AI boom is going to happen, and they're going to have a huge head start, like the people who started earlier. Another thing you mentioned quite a lot, I really liked, was the CAN system. Can you talk more about it and how can it help us?
Yeah, so we talked about plus, minus, and equals, and I think it actually makes sense to understand the CAN system as a simple concept to better understand that plus, minus, equals framework. Simply put, create and network, content and networking, collaborate and network. I love the C's. I could keep going all day. Community and networking. So a lot of people go into networking conversations with a lot of business cards, an elevator pitch, and it just feels forced. It's not human to human. And you go when you hand out 100 business cards and you never built a relationship. You didn't create any content. To me, it was stale. And I'll be transparent. Like, I'm not the loudest person in the room. I can be kind of reserved and mellow. So I thought, how can I network but still be Ben, where I don't have to go to some clanky dinner party with lots of booze and business cards? Let's create and network. Let's create content and network. We're doing a case study right now. We're creating content while we get to know each other. And that's really all it is. Create and network. If I'm a graphic designer, I'm going to try to find writers that I can collaborate with. Hey, I love what you said here. Can I turn it into a graphic? Then we share it. If I'm a photographer, let's say I want to take pictures of food. I'm going to go into a restaurant and I'm going to be like, I love your food. I'm building my portfolio. Can we collaborate here? I want to take a picture of your menu items and your specials. And if you're open to it, you can share it on your Instagram and invite me to be a collaborator. Or a YouTube channel, let's say it's a newer YouTube channel, you have guests on. Or you do a YouTube swap where maybe each of you host a video on each other's channel. Why are we doing this? We're reaching out to our plus or minus and our equals, reaching out to mentors that'll give us that shared credibility. We're reaching out to mentees that we can help teach and work with together. They also are oftentimes possible clients. We're reaching out to possible clients and saying, hey, let's do an event together. Hey, let's do a podcast together. And our equals are those peer-to-peer relationship support. So we already know who we want to meet. We already know what value we can bring into their lives. Now we just need to choose a tool. Whether it's a blog, whether it's YouTube, whether it's a podcast, whether it's an event, we use that tool to create something and network simultaneously. And then you don't really feel like you're networking. You're just doing cool stuff with cool people and creating things that didn't exist until you did it. So that's the way I like to network personally.
I loved your approach because I'm a bit like you. Like, I'm not the type of person who likes to just go to events and speak. I'm not the loud person as well. So I never thought from this perspective you just said. So really interesting. From now on, I'm going to start having this in my head. Very good approach of yours. I love it. So nowadays, it feels many people, they say that it feels like everyone has a podcast. And what would you say to entrepreneurs who have a podcast and they feel overwhelmed by the fact that there are 4 million podcasts out there?
Yeah, I mean, everyone does have a podcast. If you want to be rich and famous overnight as the next big Mr. Beast creator, starting a random podcast won't get you there. At least there's a very, very low probability. I'm just being honest with y'all. That's why I talk about the CAN system, creating and networking. That's why I talk about the term I use is creation-driven networking, having creation, content, driving your networking. That's why we talk about relationships. That's why we talk about strategy on who we're going to connect with and build a relationship with. Because you probably won't. I'm just like the bearer of bad news today. You probably won't be the next Mr. Beast. You probably won't be the next Joe Rogan. You probably won't be the next Brene Brown. I'd love to be, but it's a low probability. But if you go in not thinking you're going to be rich and famous overnight, thinking I'm going to use this as a tool to put more good into the world. I'm going to create content. I'm a huge fan of collaboration. We've already talked about this. I don't want to just do a solo podcast. I don't have a solo YouTube channel. It's mostly interviews. I'm going to be putting out solo videos as well, but you go in thinking, I want to connect, I want to collaborate, I want to learn some stuff. Then you might never be the biggest. You might still be a minnow in a sea. This is a better way to put it. You might be a minnow in an ocean of sameness. So the question you ask yourself is, how do I get into a pond? How do I get into the smallest body of water possible? And then you think, let's niche down. Let's do this topic for this people. These are my pluses, my minus, and equals. These are who I serve. I'm never going to be Mr. Beast, but I can still love what I do, create fantastic content, and make a good living doing it because I'm focused and I'm serving 1,000 people, 5,000 people. And it's hard to serve 10 million if you can't even properly serve 100. So worry about bringing immense amount of value. I'm on a soapbox now, but bring so much value to your first 100. Then worry about scaling. People want to scale before they even create good content in the first place. That's a hard truth. So create good content for a niche quantity of people. Know why you're doing it. And if you feel like quitting and your content stinks and you don't get results and you want to quit, quit. I'm giving you permission. Like, if you're not passionate about it, don't do it. The only way to truly outlast is to love it. So if you have all these doubts and you don't love it, it just might not be the route for you. But if you don't have any doubts, you simply just have to outlast, because you're going to overestimate what you're going to do early on and massively underestimate what you can do in a 10-year horizon. And that's my soapbox of the day. Go ahead and quit if you want to. There's so many creators out there. But if you want to truly make a difference, it's going to take some time.
Of course.
It really is.
It's a different game.
Has anyone ever told your audience to quit doing content? It's not for everyone. It's not like I go be like a freaking financial advisor. Like do something else. There's nothing wrong with it. Oh man, I hope I didn't piss anybody off. But anyways,
I love it. You can keep talking about it. Many people have to hear this.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta speak the truth. That is so true. You definitely not gonna be the next Joe Rogan, because he's talking to everyone. And yeah, if you're talking to everyone, most of the times you're gonna end up speaking to no one. Speaking of the key of success. There are some people who think you need a magical key, but I know you have a different opinion about that. Can you talk about your special key?
I think there is no key. And I actually think it's a red flag if someone says, I have this one size fits all solution for all human beings. Always. You need, like, it's like sleazy marketing. I think there is no true one size fits all key to success. I think it's a combination lock, very similar to the reason they take your fingerprint when you get in trouble. It's because you have a unique fingerprint. You have a unique DNA code. At the gym or on your cell phone, you're going to have a pin. You're going to have a combination lock.
Mm-hmm.
I think the key is actually to discover your combination, which no two sizes are going to look exactly the same, just how no two fingerprints will look exactly the same. Do I think there's essentials like good health? Totally. But some people have a celiac issue. Some people struggle with lactose intolerance. What's good health? Some people are male. Some people are female. There's tall, short. Like, there's certain essentials. But truly, the key to success is finding your own combination. So who are your pluses, minus, and equals? Who's your audience? Who do you serve? What lights you up? What is your gift? What what would you do if you didn't get paid? I like to say $1 billion idea. Well, billions, I'd take it all day. Let's say 1 million. $1 million idea is an idea that you couldn't pay me $1 million if I had to stop doing. So let's say I love podcasting so much. You say $1 million, Ben, you never get to podcast again in your life. If I would not take the million knowing I can podcast the next 80 years of my life, that's $1 million idea. What is more important than the money to you? That could have something to do with your combination, but it's that discovery process of where do I fit into this world? How do I show up the best? And again, like if you're marketing to, I'm from Rochester, New York. If I'm marketing locally to Rochester, New York, that's a different DNA combination than if I'm marketing internationally.
Yeah.
So it is a lifelong journey. There is no individual key to success. I think it's a combination lock. And if you can understand your combination, you just start unlocking things all day long. But you got to figure it out first.
Ben, you have over 8 years of experience in the podcasting market. So what are some big mistakes you see that entrepreneurs who have a podcast make and how they can avoid these mistakes?
I'm going to piss people off with this answer. It's true, though. You start a podcast, you don't have an audience, you don't have a ton of marketing experience, and you don't have a large budget. You have something you enjoy, though. And if you enjoy it, that's what matters more than anything. I'm never going to take that away from someone, whether anyone's listening or not. But you just start talking into, let's say, a phone in your car. The AC's running, so there's a hiss sound going, and it's you tangentially monologuing for 45 minutes. Family and friends might listen in for an episode or two. If they're very similar to you, they might go on that ride with you. But it's going to be very difficult to buy and build an audience. I think you want good sound quality. You want good video quality. It doesn't want to be perfect. In my opinion, in a podcast, unless, let's say you're Oprah. Oprah could start a podcast today, only do solo episodes. Everyone's going to be viral. Guaranteed. If I did only solo episodes in my car with the AC running, talking about some fringe topic, no one's going to listen. That's why I always talk about the creation-driven networking. The creating and networking is if I have a tiny, tiny podcast, I'm going to find a way to build a community with my podcast. I don't want me in an echo chamber talking to myself. I think YouTube's a different ballgame. If you can solve a problem with 3 easy tips, that's a good YouTube video. But it's not always a fantastic to do a long form solo podcast. You don't have listeners yet. So I think the biggest mistake is thinking that just because you have this great idea means you can click record and go popular. I think you need to be strategic. And my strategy is always just to build relationships while I do it, because if I never go viral, I still gain relationships. But you really want to be smart and strategic. I think everyone's done that. They've like recorded a singing video in the car. They thought it sounded good and they listen back and they're like, what did I just record? If you're that person, there's no problem with it. It's just, it's like learning a language for the first time. You go through that, then you get a good mic, you get a good camera, you get a good strategy, then you get better results.
So if no one ever told you that you can sing good, yeah, this might be your sign.
Don't join American Idol. No.
Or just for the laughs. So Ben, let's be honest, between you and me, we know podcasting takes lots of time. It's going to take, like, each episode takes time and it's going to take resources. How can you make sure that you're going to get something out of it for your business? And how would you measure return of investment for this podcast?
Yeah, it's a toughie. Like, how do I make sure? I guess first you have to define what you want and what you're there for.
Mm-hmm.
ROI is such a complicated term because what are you optimizing for? You're going to have to allocate time. There is going to be some funds and subscriptions. So how do you get an ROI? Are you monetizing for the amount of money you make? What I optimize for more than anything is my the impact I create. How many conversations did I have today? How many comments were on my video? Did I receive any DMs? How many views did I get on my social media posts? I might not actually be making an income, but I'm making an impact. So for me, my podcast costs a little bit. I actually do make money on it, not a significant amount, but the impact I make makes every second I spend with it worth that time. And for what it's worth, I have a marketing agency. So though I'm not making a bunch of money over on the podcast, it's actually building the brand that allows me to make money with the marketing agency. So the question, that's why ROI gets complicated. People want some simple number. First, you need to figure out, why am I doing it? What am I optimizing for? Am I starting this to monetize it, or am I starting it as a brand tool to monetize my business? Once you understand why you're doing it, you can put together different tiers as to what you're looking to accomplish. But it goes back to what we talked about before. If you don't enjoy it and you're not passionate about it and you're just using it as a business tool, you probably actually chose the wrong platform. So I hope that helps, but I optimize for the impact and the conversations that I have. And the more I get DMs, the more I get reshares, the more I get people telling me, thank you, this changed my life. That's what I'm looking for. And you can tally those babies up all day and get as many as you can.
Yeah, that is so true. Those heartwarming comments, they usually make your day.
Ben, what is your perspective on how podcasting changed the way you understand your audience nowadays? And how did it impact your overall business?
Yeah, so I don't know if I understood I don't even know if I still understand my audience.
No problem.
The beauty of, well, I mean, I can give you a generic answer and some metrics, but the beauty of podcasting is it's been a personalized journey. I didn't begin with the end of mind. I want to target males 20 to 30 with a fitness product. I was a broke, unemployed ex-sales executive during a pandemic, and I thought maybe there is a slight chance I could possibly be an entrepreneur. So I started a business on a whim. I started a podcast on a whim, and I used the podcast to document my learning journey. I was a good marketer. That's a fact. So I was marketing the podcast as I was documenting my learning journey, and it was creating content that grabbed attention towards me. Wow, this person's young and hungry, not complaining about COVID, just out there doing the best he can to make the most of it. That's how I built my business. But I didn't start with the audience. My audience, this is a selfish statement, but it's true. My audience is a reflection of me. As I learn, my audience learns. As I level up, my audience levels up. That's why I started Grow Getters Only, so I wasn't just in an echo chamber on this podcasting journey on my own. I wanted to build a community that we could level up together. So I think there's no end destination. I think it's a constant evolution. It's constantly leveling up, and it's smart to begin with the end in mind. I just began with the journey in mind. I don't know nothing about business. I'm going to start a podcast about business, even though I have no qualifications to do so. And the entire podcast is going to be me learning how to business. And it's led to whatever it is now. But yeah, my audience probably thinks I'm a mad scientist or something. Who knows?
A mad scientist.
So really interesting. I find your documenting story. I think actually it's a very great content type as well, as we talked about authenticity. And what did you learn the most about it? Like, what was the biggest mindset shift for you?
We already talked about there is no key to success. It's a combination lock. It's all about the journey. That's a big one. There's never a shortage of things to be curious about. I sell myself short, but I'm proficient in a lot of things, but I'm world class in possibly little to none. I'm young enough. I'll get to world class. I'm not too worried about it. But everyone I meet knows a million things I don't. They've had experiences. So every time I have a conversation on the podcast, even if we're talking about the exact same strategy, they'll use a different story. They'll use a different example. They'll present it in a different way. And there's a lot of nuance that's really hard to quantify, that when you just have conversations and you sit down and you listen, you learn something new every single day. So some of the topics this is me getting myself in trouble a lot today, but some of the topics on my podcast are starting to feel a little bit stale at times. Like, we've already done this. We've already talked about this. And then I remind myself, one, the audience maybe didn't hear us talk about it the other 5 times. And second, we can still look at this at a brand new angle. It's only stale if you allow it to get stale, because there's always that curiosity lens. And the more I talk to people, the more I realize how little I know and how much I can still learn as I go.
Interesting. Yeah, something you mentioned is you proficient in many things, and there's always this quote which is actually getting misquoted, and it's like a jack of all trades is the master of none.
Yeah, that's fine.
But people don't get the full quote because it goes on, but oftentimes better than a master of one. I think that's more like the entrepreneurial mindset. Like, I'm the same way. I just talked to someone else and I was like, man, I could do all day. I could just I wish I could read 20 books a day. I wish I could watch at the same time 6 hours of podcasting. And it's like, I'm just so curious, but I think it's the entrepreneur's mind. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Sometimes I feel like I'm just some kind of crazy, but it's some kind of crazy to build something from nothing. I've had a good life. I have zero complaints, but there's people that are handed $1 million and they go, hey, go spend this on a business. To start from eating ramen noodles and struggling and being some kind of crazy to think you can build something so big. I don't know if it's just like a entrepreneur gene. But it's not for the weak-willed. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes curiosity, and you might be a specialist and a master at one thing, but if you don't learn accounting, if you don't learn sales, if you don't learn design, if you don't learn or have the humility of hiring out and training and collaborating with people that know these things, you'll never, even with your incredible skills, you're never going to get to the top. So it's really having that humility and that risk tolerance to go out and try something that's never been done before. And mentors have done similar things. So you can learn it, but it's never been done before by you. So it's kind of scary. But it's a lot of fun. So I don't know if that answered your questions. I think entrepreneurs have some crazy gene in them. And that's what I love about them.
Yeah, I think for the people who don't go this step, it's just a little crazy. I remember almost 18 months ago when I quit my job, and people's like, "Wow, I'm so jealous of you, but I could never." Man, you live in the dream, but I could never. Yeah, I think also specialists are more the people who are gonna stay in a job. It's like, this is why I think what the workforce is kind of building people, just a specialist. Hey, I have a specialist who's just doing video. I have a specialist who's just doing design. A specialist who's just doing copy. So, yeah, entrepreneurs are mad scientists.
I want to just make this clear. A surgeon gets paid significantly better than 98% of entrepreneurs.
Oh, yeah, true.
being a specialist, being a really good videographer or a director of movies, you're going to get paid well. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, you can't just be a specialist.
Yeah.
That's the key there.
Yeah, and I think most people fail at this. It's, for example, I'm from the mechanic background, the car mechanic background, and so I know many people. It's like, I'm so good with repairing cars, so they start a business. But the reason why they fail is because they're gonna stay in this role. It's like, now, yeah, it's like you need to know accountant, you need to know how to get your name out of there, you need to know how to get new customers, and that's why I think many people fail. Because they haven't learned all these skills, or they don't want it. And yeah.
Well, I mean, who's making more money? And the mechanic, there's nothing wrong with them. They're brilliant. Who's making more money, though? The mechanic or the person paying the mechanic?
Yeah, usually the one who's paying, if it's going well.
Yeah.
That's the caveat. But yeah, I mean, who's making more money? It's usually not the person doing the work. It's the person selling the work or the person marketing the work. The person bringing in the business is usually going to make more money than the person doing the fulfillment. And that's just an eye opener that if you really want to make good money, fulfilling a product is important, but being able to sell, market, and build teams around that product is even more important. It's the most important.
So true. Yeah, let's wrap it up. We have some 5 rapid questions for Ben. What is your favorite podcast?
Oh, well, I can't answer that on the spot. My favorite podcast. I'm gonna just be humble and I'm actually gonna be promotional. I'm gonna say the Jordan Harbinger show because I started listening to Jordan Harbinger like 10 years ago. And he's about to speak at my community soon. So
Nice.
I'm just going to be promotional and give it to him because he's the one guy that decided to come speak at the community. So he's my instant favorite. And it's a great podcast.
Great. And what is your favorite book?
These are tough questions. I'm going to the things that have had the biggest impact on me. So The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod.
I read it. It's pretty good.
It's a good one.
6 years ago, I read this book in 2018, I think.
And do you do
Very
a
good.
Miracle Morning?
I tried to do, but I gotta confess that at the moment I don't. But it's a very good book. It's an open-minded.
It is.
What is the greatest advice you ever got and you want to share?
I'd say you are enough. 3 words. I'd put it on a billboard for the world to see if necessary. You are enough. If I were to add more, I'd say you're good enough now and you're only getting better. I think you can be a badass and still get better.
Mm-hmm.
You're perfect as you are. We all have struggles, but I think a lot of people need to realize they're good enough. And once you give yourself that love, then you can step forward and step into what you were brought here to do. But if you don't feel like you're enough, you're going to not show up as good as I know you can. So I think that's advice to myself. I'm not perfect, but you got to remind yourself to love yourself, you know?
Very deep. Amazing. I loved your advice. What is your biggest hero?
My biggest hero? Well, give it to my grandma.
Oh. Why?
So I was a shy kid. This is a long story, but I was a very shy kid. And at the dinner table, I always sat in the exact same seat. Still to this day, I'm 33, sit in the exact same seat next to grandma. And when I was bullied in school, and when I was not speaking up, and when I didn't have a ton of friends or a big personality, grandma would sit there and ask me questions and listen and make me feel heard from day one. And I think my curiosity and my willingness to hold space for others came from her holding space for me. And I didn't realize that till I was older, but if someone takes my seat, we're going to have a fight. That's my seat.
Oh, that's so lovely. I got a bit emotional because of that, because my grandma also played a huge role in my life. Yeah. Beautiful.
So, what are you looking for your future?
Just trying to have some fun with fun people. I'm a day-to-day goal setter. I want to live in a life that's in aligned with my values. I want to help people. Sure, I want to build my podcast. I want to build my community. I want to travel. Like, the only thing on my mind lately is traveling. But it's really like, this is counter business advice. I just want to have fun every single day. And if I have fun every single day, I'm very confident that I'll get where I need to be. I might not even get there as quick as the person who's having no fun, but I got to have a ton of fun. So I'm just trying to have some fun, guys. That's all.
Amazing. Love it. So where can people find out more about Ben and also about the Growth Getters Only?
If someone's watching or listening to this and they haven't hit subscribe, or they haven't hit a thumbs up, or left a comment, or sent a DM, why not? There's so much time and effort that you guys put into it. So I recommend the viewer, the listener, to show some love here today.
Oh, thank you.
You can find me by typing in the words real business connections wherever you found this. You mentioned Grow Getters Only, growgettersonly.com, or type in Grow Getters Only into Google. But really, like, type in Real Business Connections. You'll find the podcast. You'll find the brand. And Grow Getters is the community where we take guests from the podcast and the YouTube channel, and they become guest speakers. So check out the podcast, check out the YouTube. And if you want a community to consume and learn with, the next step would be to go to growgettersonly.com. But show some love here first. So 3 steps. Show some love here. Type in Real Business Connections. And if you need accountability, that's when you go to Grow Getters Only.
Here's the thing about great podcasts. They don't happen by accident.
Click here because I found an AI that will help you create interviews that actually make an impact. Plus, common mistakes that make viewers tune out. See you there.